Have you ever wondered what contingencies are in real estate transactions? It's a question that's often asked. I'm Eileen Hill. I'm a top agent in Gwinnett County. I primarily serve buyers and sellers northeast of Atlanta, outside of the perimeter. Contingencies in real estate, I like to look at them as benchmarks or milestones that we have throughout a transaction, throughout the sale. It's also important to note they're viewed differently between buyers and sellers. In buyers, they are protective periods of time that are put into the contract. And they are protecting the buyer's deposit. Typically, when a buyer goes under contract, they are going to make a deposit known as the earnest money. And it's typically going to be 1% or greater than the contract price for the home. These contingencies that I'm going to talk about are protective measures of the buyer's deposit. Now, in the eyes of a seller, contingencies are risks that the seller may be assuming by selecting a certain buyer. Let's look at the 4 most common contingencies in real estate agreements. The first one is known as the due diligence period, and I include this as a contingency because, well, the buyer can terminate in this period. This is a very short period of time after a buyer goes under contract. They have the right to inspect the home, visit the home again, and they can change their mind. They can do this during this period and terminate without penalty. That's contingency number 1, due diligence. Now let's look at a second common contingency, the finance contingency. And this is actually part of a separate exhibit to the agreement, the loan exhibit, and the buyer has a period of time that they can get a full loan approval. And if for some reason the bank denies the buyer from getting a loan approval, the buyer, with written notification from the bank, has the right to terminate the agreement and get their deposit back. The third common contingency we see in real estate agreements is the appraisal contingency. This contingency is part of the contingency I just discussed, the finance contingency, in that exhibit of the contract. But this is a period of time where the bank sends an appraiser to appraise the property. And if a property does not appraise for the contract price, the appraiser is going, remember, to establish that the contract price is market value, fair market value for that home. If it doesn't, the buyer has the right to possibly negotiate with the seller. And if the seller is not willing and everybody's not on the same page, the buyer again can terminate the agreement without penalty. The fourth contingency that we're going to discuss is a contingency to sell. And this is that the buyer is going to purchase this property, but it's contingent, it's dependent on the sale of their home, the lease of a property, or sometimes even the sale of a business. Once this event happens, the buyer would have the cash to purchase a home, and the contract is dependent on it. So that is 4 contingencies that we commonly see in real estate agreements. And if you have more questions about these in agreements and how it might affect your next move, please reach out.